Now, to kick things off for day two, please join me in welcoming here to the Atlanta stage a partner in Miller Martin, the sponsor for this year's induction into the Georgia Fintech Hall of Fame, Mr. Mike Marshall. Thank you, Mike.
Thank you, Mike. I appreciate the introduction. Welcome, everybody. Good morning. I hope you all didn't get stuck in the terrible traffic that we've heard about. But as Mike mentioned, my name is Michael Marshall. I am a partner with the law firm Miller & Martin. We are a southeastern-based firm, offices in Atlanta, Nashville, Charlotte, and Chattanooga, Tennessee. We have had a long association with TAG, dating back to primarily there was a former partner of mine named Ken Antley who was instrumental in forming TAG and in its early days, and he passed away a few years ago, and we have maintained our association with TAG. It's given me an opportunity to step in and fill his shoes, and through that I have gotten to know some of the folks at TAG, and we are honored and pleased to be a sponsor and to be associated with this fine event, Fintech South and the Hall of Fame program. So with no further ado, I would want to introduce you to Larry Williams, who's the president of TAG and a good friend and more important, just an all-around very nice guy. So Larry, I'll turn it over to you.
Well, good morning, everybody. Good morning. What a great day. We're kicking off day two of Fintech South 2023. That's right. You can applaud. That's a good one. Ew. Well, again, welcome back. I really hope you enjoyed day one as much as I did. You know, what an incredible group of people. What an incredible day that we all had. And super excited about what we can accomplish today. You know, as Mike mentioned, we have a full day of amazing content, continued opportunities to network and truly engage with one another. And each year, Fintech South, we honor one of Georgia's most influential innovators in the fintech industry. Well, this year is no exception. So today, we honor Jeff Sloan, retired CEO of Global Payments. Jeff has had a very successful career, and I look forward to spending some time with him here on stage to have an in-depth dialogue with him to learn more about his successes and gain some insights about the past, present, and future of the fintech industry. But first, I'd like to provide a brief bio on Jeff. During Jeff's 10-year tenure at as Global Payments CEO, annual revenue for the Atlanta-based multinational payments technology and services leader grew from roughly $2 billion in 2013 to $9 billion in 2022. That's phenomenal. The firm was named to the Fortune 500 list of the largest U.S. corporations in 2021. In 2021, Global Payments completed its merger with TSYS, another cornerstone of Georgia's financial technology community, adding further scale to a volume-driven business in which Georgia companies process roughly 70% of all U.S. debit, credit, and reward card-based transactions. Through this combination, Global Payments now maintains an important presence in Atlanta as well as in Columbus, Georgia. The Atlanta Business Chronicle has recognized Global Payments as the state's largest fintech employer. Additional acquisitions over the last 3 years include EVO Payments and Mineral Tree, which continue to fortify Global Payments' capabilities in the fast-growing and strategically critical business-to-business payments area. Jeff continues to serve as a board member of FleetCor, yet another central player in Georgia's Fintech ecosystem. Prior to joining Global Payments, Jeff was a partner at Goldman Sachs in New York for 11 years as the global lead of Financial Technology Group. He holds a bachelor's degree in finance from the Wharton School and a doctorate of law from the New York University School of Law. Jeff and his wife Vicki have 3 children. They reside here in Atlanta. And please join me in a warm welcome to this year's Fintech Hall of Fame inductee, Jeff Sloan, and let's give him a great congratulations for this great honor.
Thanks, Larry. Thanks, man. Thank you. Well, it's great to be here today, and let me begin by thanking Larry and the Technology Association of Georgia for this prestigious award. I'm most honored to accept it here today in front of you all, and I also appreciate all your hospitality. My role as CEO was the high honor and privilege of my 30-plus year business career. I hate to say this because I'm kind of dating myself, but that actually spans 4 decades. Together with our most valued team members, we accomplished so many things, and Larry alluded to some of these, including, in particular, as Larry said, achieving Fortune 500 status at the beginning of this decade. That was an audacious goal that we set out in 2013 when we started first managing our business to be one of the 500 largest companies in the United States by revenue. And we achieved it before the decade was out. We did it not because it was easy, but because it was hard. Together with our nearly 28,000 team members in 40 countries, speaking incredibly 18 different primary languages every day, we created the leading software-driven payments company worldwide. That's a term that we coined all the way back in 2015 that defined an industry's growth for the next near decade and is now accepted dogma in all of our markets. Together with the 7,000 team members that we have right here in Georgia, we achieved leadership positions in software, established e-commerce and omni-channel business dominance, enhanced our exposure to faster growth markets around the world, and pivoted toward B2B or business-to-business solutions to provide for future growth opportunities for many years to come. As much as we accomplished objectively, I'm most proud of the mission, culture, and values that we created together as one team at Global Payments over many decades. Our culture first emphasizes the quality of our people. Our people come first, and every business at the end of the day, in my opinion, is really a people business. We also emphasize our diversity, our trusted partnerships, our business agility, innovative thinking, and performance excellence. While I miss many things about our company, I most miss our days of service and our team appreciation days, where we give back to the communities in which we live and work and celebrate both our similarities as well as our differences. Our diversity is our strength, and we are stronger together for it. Thanks again to Larry and to TAG for having me here again today. I also want to thank my family for putting up with me for the last 34 years while I've been building all these things together. I am truly humbled to receive this great award here today. Thank you guys for having me.
Great job, Jeff.
Thanks, I appreciate it. Yeah.
Go over here. Whichever side you prefer.
Sure. I'll do it.
Well, Jeff, congratulations again. You're joining a great group of people, including your friend Paul Garcia, as being part of the Georgia Fintech Hall of Fame. So, yes, quite an honor, and we're delighted to have you here, and I'm delighted to be here on stage with you. As we said in the intro, 13 years at Global Payments, 10 years as CEO, Goldman Sachs. Tell us, whenever you got this opportunity at Global Payments, what really attracted you to this opportunity?
Well, thanks again, Larry, for having me. It's a pleasure to be here this morning with you. I'll date myself a little bit, as I kind of said in my opening remarks. So I'm embarrassed, but also proud to say that I first started working with global payments in 1995. So it's pretty unusual, and you'll have your own opinion, given your background and experience, Larry, about the length of tenure, that somebody has before they kind of start anything. But it was probably the opposite of the typical job interview, where you kind of walk in, don't really know the business. Instead, I really go back 3 decades, near 3 decades, and probably 3 management teams and 3 boards of directors ago with global payments when it was part of National Data Corporation. And when I was with GS in the late 90s, I worked with Paul Garcia, and I remember meeting him probably the first week or 2 when he started the job in 1999, when it was still a subsidiary of National Data Corporation with Bob Yelleys. I sat down with Paul early on in his tenure, and as an advisor at GS, worked with Paul, Bob, and Global Payments in buying CIBC's business in Canada, which when we closed that deal at the time of the spinoff of Global Payments on January 1st or thereabouts of 2001, was roughly 30% of the company. Canada was, and CIBC in particular was. So really what attracted me to Global was a few things. Number one, the length of tenure and visibility I had into the company. The second thing is I'm a huge fan of Atlanta. So in moving my family, and I think you said this, our kids at the time were going into 9th grade, 6th grade, and 2nd grade. And I thought it was a good time, along with Vicky, who's here today, to think about a place to go. And there are very few places I would consider, and Atlanta was really, having traveled here for 25 years and with clients and the like, Atlanta was the top of the list. Last thing I would say was, for all the pluses and minuses of all of our businesses at the time, now 13, 14 years ago, I knew that there was a good underlying platform. I knew the people were terrific, at the company, and I was convinced that we could build a differentiated technology business, right here in Atlanta. So those are the things that really attracted me.
I was thinking that we had one shared experience, but yours is different, and that is the first job that I had in Atlanta, I was interviewed by Paul Garcia to get the job at the Metro Atlanta Chamber. And so where we got to be good friends. 2019, you led the biggest M&A merger of two payments companies with TSYS. Quite the challenge. You said before you didn't do it because it was easy, you did it because it was hard, and there's all of this. Tell us about that journey. How did that come across? How did that come about? And how did the deal happen? Give us a little bit behind the curtain of how that deal came together.
Well, I must be bad at my job, Larry, because it took me 25 years to try to get that deal done. Global Payments and TSYS. Yeah, it took a long time. Global Payments and TSYS, I think, have been natural partners for many reasons for much of the last 2 decades. When Paul was running our company, Paul and Troy and Phil and Rick had spent a lot of time together. I had spent a lot of time together when I was at GS in Columbus with the guys at TSYS. So I think this is one of these things that was meant to be and was a very natural partnership, and we just needed the right opportunity to get things done. So, listen, we typically when we're looking at large partnerships, we typically start with the strategic fit. And as we said at the time, and I think certainly it's been true, even through the pandemic, kind of coming out of COVID, I think we're absolutely a stronger company together, TSYS and Global Payments. If you look at the performance of our business, our combined businesses in the 4 years, and I got lost track of the day today, but it's almost 4 years to the day today since we closed the merger. Neither one of us would be in the position that we're in today, including especially given the rigors of the last 3.5 years, if we hadn't been a combined, company. And it really is the best of both businesses. So with, TSYS, we got additional scale in our merchant business, which is 75% of the company today. With TSYS, we got the world's leading issuer technology business. And with TSYS, as I mentioned before, and you touched on this in what you said, we really laid the foundation for B2B investment and development through many of TSYS's commercial card and virtual card businesses, which I believe is the next great opportunity in payments. And I think today B2B in payments is where e-com was in the late 90s, in our industry. So I think that the partnership with TSYS is critical to best positioning the business for growth over the next decade.
You know, I know innovation has been at the heart of your leadership style and what you've talked about, and I think led with as a leader through this. Getting the deal done was one thing. The next part was the integration. So tell us about that integration and the steps that you had to take, and any key, what's the secret sauce for a successful integration at that scale?
So, Larry, when I was in banking, your work kind of stopped, at the time of the announcement of a merger like that. And as you know, in the context of an operating company, your work kind of starts really in mergers the day the thing is announced and then obviously closed. And I would say sitting here today, 4 years later, I couldn't be more pleased really with where the business is. So listen, I think that the secret sauce in every business, and I mentioned this a little bit at the podium, but it's certainly true in the context of a merger, is the people. Right. So ultimately, technology company or not, every business is really driven by its people. And what we like to say in all of our deals, but especially our partnership with TSYS, is it's really combining the best of both companies. And by that, I really mean to start with the best of both people. If you look at how the business is run today, the board, as well as the management team, I really believe it is the best of both companies and couldn't be more pleased about that. The other thing I'd say is we have incredible rigor just in terms of pure execution around how we approach these types of combinations. So we probably have 500 people across 50 different subgroups, working on those integrations for, generally 3 years after the deals from announcement until certainly through close. And we've largely wrapped that up, kind of at the end of 22, which was 3 years after we, closed the deal. So I think it's a skill set, to be honest. I think it's very easy, given our day jobs, to not want to do more than everything we've committed to run our core businesses. But I think focusing on doing the right thing for all of our people years after the merger is consummated is a critical part of our success.
Well, it sounds like part of that is also keeping the eye on the future and what's going on. And you've touched on this before. You've got to keep your eye on what the trends are. So I think these mergers and acquisitions have also been a cornerstone of your leadership throughout the years at Global Payments. So other examples, mentioned before, MineralTree, EVO. Yeah. What did you look for? What was, where did those synergies happen that you said, that's going to help us drive to the future?
So at Global Payments, we have really two core assets in terms of our businesses. The first one is we're a technology company, so we're building distinctive technologies. The second thing is we're trying to sell those distinctively through value-added services, software, and the like. So I think when you think about most of the partnerships we've done, MineralTree, EVO, TSYS, Heartland, since we've been there, they generally are centered around a few things. The first is, are we expanding geographically into new, attractive, target addressable markets we weren't in before? A great example of that is Latin America. Yep. So, Global Payments did not have a sizable, we had a small business in Mexico with HSBC, but we didn't have a sizable business in Latin America. TSYS really brought us Brazil. TSYS brought us Chile. I mean, these are some of the largest markets, of course, in Latin America. And then EVO bought us the 800-pound gorilla in Mexico, Banamex, as a partnership. So the first thing in all these things is to bring us new target addressable markets that are attractive. The second is new businesses that are attractive. And I referenced a minute ago B2B. So in the case of MineralTree, which was really our first formal entry via acquisition into B2B, we couldn't be more pleased with how that business has grown. But of course, TSYS came with enormous assets in B2B too. And it's something Troy and I had talked about and Troy had thought about for a long time, which was how to further penetrate B2B. And unlike the business to consumer element of the merchant business, which is very attractive too, and that's something like a $25-30 trillion market, the B2B business, MasterCard has sized that at like $125 trillion. And yet it still is 50% plus, check and ACH. So it's wildly, underpenetrated. So I think buying additional geography entrances, as we've done in the case of EVO, investing in new vertical markets, like we're doing with TSYS and MineralTree in B2B, really continues to open up opportunities for future growth. And the nice thing about where we are, Larry, and I've said this, to some of our representatives in Congress because it's super important. And here in Georgia, we build our technologies right here in the United States, and in most cases, right here in Georgia. So it's critically important, for us as a state, but also for us as a country, to continue with the R&D tax credits and some of the other things, because we are a net exporter of our technologies from the U.S., and in many cases right here in Georgia, to places outside the United States. And those additional target addressable markets geographically, as well as the vertical solutions, depend on people right here building them and sending them overseas.
That's very interesting. It's, again, it goes back to that word about innovation. And it sounds like, market share is always a good reason to do a merger and acquisition, getting new technologies also. But that really is very thoughtful about how you do that. And then the B2B space is that's still a great opportunity for us to pioneer as we're moving forward. You've referenced this, global is global. Biggest transaction in Fintech company here in Georgia. You grew up here. Let's talk about Georgia. What makes Georgia such a great place to have this type of innovation and to build companies and to do the development here?
Well, I'm biased in saying this, of
Good.
course, because I'm in Georgia.
I'm biased in
My
answering.
kids all grew up here in Georgia. We're here in Georgia, but I'd say it's a few things. The first I'd say is the infrastructure and investment that our state has made here in Georgia makes all the difference in the world. And I'll just start with the quality of our people. So not surprising to anyone, hopefully in this room, Georgia Tech, University of Georgia, Emory, the bench is deep here in Georgia for the quality of the talent and the technology people who we need to continue to develop our business. I'll just give you an example. And look, this is money, so money's money. I'm sensitive to it, but we invest $2 billion a year in our technology footprint from an OpEx and CapEx point of view, just in digital payments for global payments. And who's building that stuff? We're building it right here in Georgia from people who went to school and
That's
live
great.
and work in Georgia. So I think critical to our success is the infrastructure and the investment that our state makes in the people here in Georgia. I don't think there's any place, again, I'm biased in saying this, but I don't think there's any place in the country or the world really that's better to hire in payments, in tech, than right here in Georgia. The second thing I would say is the physical infrastructure in the form of Atlanta Hartsfield. You and I were talking about this right before the presentation. So there are a number of years, particularly pre-COVID, where I would fly 250,000 plus miles a year on Delta. And there aren't many places in the United States or globally for that matter, but in the United States where you can go directly, without stopping to Asia, to Latin America, to Europe, obviously all around North America on Delta, right here in our hometown, right? 30-minute drive to Hartsfield, and you can pretty much go without stop, anywhere on the planet, which as a business person is incredibly important when you're gone for 2 to 3 weeks at a time in Asia, Latin America, and Europe. So that's very important to what we do. And the third thing I would say is, our government, and here I'm thinking the Federal Reserve of Atlanta, and the like, but there's a healthy history here in Atlanta because in part through the Federal Reserve's actions around being the payments bank and the payments experts here in the United States. People who are in payments and financial technology want to live in Georgia, want to work in Georgia. That knowledge base is here, and that's obviously immensely helpful to what we're trying to do.
Sometimes people come here a little bit skeptical, but then you can't get them to leave. They love here, and a lot of people grew up here. And I think one thing that's interesting about the digital payments and just the payments place in general, our history goes back to, even before check processing. And when it comes to digital payments, we've really built every layer of the onion. So when you talk about that depth of skill and innovation, that puts us in a great position to know what's next. A decade ago, we were very set on making sure that Georgia was a top 5 technology state. And, we've earned our spurs. We've earned our place at the table, and I say with confidence, not with arrogance. And I think this is a perfect example of how we've helped develop that, and we appreciate your leadership in the field. But let's talk about innovation. Let's talk about the future. Where do you see the future of payments and fintech? What is the next big thing? We talked about B2B, but what else?
Look, I think the future is very bright. I think many of the trends that you saw pre-pandemic in the latter part of the last decade have accelerated, through the last 3.5 years. So we talked about B2B. I really do believe, as I mentioned a minute ago, that B2B is going to provide the next leg of logarithmic growth. And what we do, obviously, FleetCor, who's here today, sponsor, talks a lot about that. Talks a lot about that too. I also think that we've been smart to make our investments in e-commerce around what I call omni-channel acceptance, meaning a seamless blurring of the virtual, which is really e-com, as well as the physical world. So, you would have looked back 10 years ago and said, well, e-commerce is the new thing. Now what I think's happened is the ability to buy something online, return it in a physical store, which we call omnichannel. That blurring of physical and virtual is critical and is the next leg of growth. And in fact, you see a lot of the e-commerce participants today, like Stripe, like Adyen, talking about the physical analog and the omnichannel analog to kind of what they're doing. Great example of this right here in Georgia is what we're doing at Global Payments with the Hawks, with the Falcons, with the Atlanta United, with the Braves, and those are all customers of Global Payments. And all that's running off of our e-com kind of online technology where you can buy your ticket online on your phone, whatever you, and on your iPad, whatever it is.
Great
no one gets physical paper anymore by your parking. That's all integrated into digital wallets. And then when you show up at the stadium, everything can be done virtually if that's what you want to do through tap and pay or however you want to pay. And I think those are great examples of, and everyone takes for granted those things are going to work. If you went back 5 years ago and you were a season ticket holder, they mailed you your tickets. No one does that anymore, right? So all this stuff is accepted that your parking, your tickets, your loyalty app, your schedule, your food, your jerseys, whatever, all that stuff is going to be on the phone. And Atlanta's, Georgia is a great example of how we've done that across 100% of the major league brands here in this state. So I think there's no end to the level of growth that omni-channel type of acceptance, in addition to B2B, is going to provide, for the next leg. And I think, let's be honest, consumer expectations have changed. They've risen, and they're above where they were at the end of the last decade. And I think that's all to our benefit.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. At TAG, we're down at the State House all year round, full-time lobbying, making sure that we, I look at things that are either going to enable or inhibit innovation. And that's our lens that we look at everything on, whether we're advocating for something or defending against something. Well, beyond just policy, anything you're concerned about for the future?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I think, as I mentioned a minute ago, and the state has done this is more of a federal comment, but we need to continue to invest, I believe, in this country by way of R&D and the like, to make sure that we are net exporters of the technologies that we build here in the United States, which we do around the world. But I don't think we can lose sight that we're competing, and some of these are good countries for us already to operate in, like Ireland. I don't think we should lose sight of the fact that there are countries in Europe and in other markets where there are active subsidies for these types of developments from the governments, the EU or whoever it is. We need to make sure that we have a level playing field, right here in the United States. So when we have 7,000 people here in Georgia and we have 18,000 people in the United States who are team members of Global Payments, those people should not be disadvantaged because they're American and because they're working in America. And unfortunately, with the expiration of the R&D tax credits, I think it was a couple of years ago, I lost track of the date, we are at a disadvantage competitively relative to a level playing field. And all we're asking for is an equal chance in our ability to build the businesses that we need. As part of Global Payments, we have 6,000 technologists in Global Payments, and we want to make sure those 6,000 people are on an equal footing with the right chance. So I think it's critically important that we don't have barriers and we're not at a disadvantage relative to our global peers.
One of my messages to our policymakers is don't take it for granted.
Right.
And I think that's, some people, like you talk about, don't get comfortable. I think policymakers can say they're here, they've always been here, they'll continue to be here, and it's not the case, and we've seen so many examples of that. I think part of my job is to constantly remind them of that at the federal and the state level. That we are competitive. I know Ireland's here today, so I know they appreciate the plug. So let's talk about you. What's next? I know you're going to remain active. I think know you well enough that that's part of your personality. You're still on the board at Fleet Corp. So what's next for you? What do you see on the horizon?
Well, Larry, I think I can be most helpful in mentoring and coaching executives, especially people who are newly as CEOs or otherwise at private companies, helping them scale, new to their roles. Let's be honest, no one kind of grows up and rolls out of bed and says, hey, today I'm going to be a CEO and everything's kind of easy to do. I think at the end of the day, the world's probably never been more complicated, that it is today, both inside and outside, really, the United States. So I really view where I can provide the most value in helping people understand what the trade-offs are, helping people manage board relationships, helping people do deals, sell assets, buy assets, that kind of thing with integration, helping people-related decision-making. I think I could provide the most value there. And I like to do that through, investing. When we were at, both when I was in banking, but also when we were at Global Payments, we bought companies, sold companies, dealt with private equity and venture capital firms. And if I can find a way to make those more valuable over time by sharing some of the mistakes I've made as well as the, the good things that we've done, I think hopefully they'll be better off. I'll be better off. I think we'll be better off. And that's what I really look forward to doing. What I really don't want to do, just to start out with the other side, is look for the last third of a century. I've really been kind of day to day in operating roles and P&Ls. Those days are probably behind me. As I think about it, I spend more time with my family, as I mentioned before. But I do think I have a lot of value on the mentoring, coach, and kind of advocacy side, and that's really where I want to spend my time.
By all means, one of my good friends down in Miami says that he learned everything from his failures and nothing from his success.
It's true.
So that's all very good. Jeff, congratulations once again on being inducted into the Georgia Fintech Hall of Fame. Delighted to have you as part of this group, and thank you for joining us here on stage.
Thank you for having me. It's an honor to be here.
Thank
you.